This is a song called Miracle by Tolan Morgan. You can get it on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you consume your music. Feel free to chime in while this song is going. Let me know what you think about the song, what you think about the mix. Chime in. I'll put the comments up on the screen while we're going. I won't be talking, but I just want you guys to enjoy the record for what it is, and then we're going to talk about how we mixed it. All right, let's go.
A miracle is an extraordinary phenomenon that affirms the presence of God's activity in the world. God doesn't just work miracles merely for the sake of showing off his power, but God works miracles as signs intended to draw humanity to himself. In the big picture, you and I are miracles. You see, at times our lives give convincing testimony to the activity and the reality of God in extraordinary ways. I need you to know that you are not a mess, a misfit, nor a mistake. No, you are a miracle. And I want you now to receive this encouragement as it is expressed through the signature voice of Burrell.
There's no telling where I could have been. And when I think about it, y'all, my life was really supposed to end. But God came and he rescued me from the trouble that I did not need.
He's the God of another chance.
He gave me a chance, and life once again. So I'll testify that I am a miracle. Oh, what joy. Every time I think about your goodness to me, oh,
It's joy unspeakable and full of glory.
oh, what joy. It just doesn't bring a smile to my face, but my heart is filled with praise. Oh, what joy that fills me.
All right, so you guys got a chance to hear the record. Sounds phenomenal. It is with your girl, Kim Burrell. I was pleasured and I thoroughly enjoyed mixing this record and enjoying just the musicality of not only her voice, but also the music in general. All right, so we're gonna cover some really, really dope things about this record. And this is why I love doing Mix Mondays, because every record is unique. You know what I mean? In and of itself, every record has its challenges. This one came with its fair share of challenges, but I think it turned out really, really good in the end, and I was very pleased at the thing. So one thing I want to start with, I do top down. We walk down through everything. We start from the top of the mix session and we walk all the way down, and I show you exactly what I did, no holds barred, all the plugins, all of the stuff like that. Then we're going to answer some questions, and we're just going to have fun and we're going to rock out. All right, so here's something I want to point out, and I want to tell you guys this very important if you're mixing, if you're getting into mixing, and that is the power of the rough mix, boys and girls. Make sure that you always lean into the rough mix. Always ask for a rough mix. The rough mix, and let me talk to you. Let me go full screen so I can talk to you guys, really have a conversation. The rough mix is important because it lets you know, it gives you those generalities of what the artist, the producer is thinking about. Because what's happened is from inception of production all the way up to when it lands on your desk to mix, everybody has been listening to a specific mix. You know what I mean? They've been listening to these playbacks for probably months, you know what I mean, leading up to when you're actually mixing it. You know what I mean? So they've been hearing those strings in their face like that. They've been hearing the keys like that. So as a mix engineer, when you start messing with stuff, when you start pulling stuff down, you start crafting things the way that you hear them, or way you want to hear them, you pull down something or you turn something down, you lose that thing that they've been listening to, and they'll hit you immediately and be like, hey man, where's the strings? Hey man, where's the horns? Hey man, what happened to the bass? Hey man, what happened to this click track, that clap that I heard in this? So it's important to get a rough mix. It's always going to sound terrible. It's a rough mix, but in that rough mix, you can be able to make decisions and be able to hear what they've been hearing, because typically what people want to hear is what they did, just cleaner, just clearer, just more defined, just more polished. But they want to hear the music the way that they've been hearing it. So when you mess with that, you mess with them. All right. So this is their rough mix. I'm going to unmute it and solo it. What I do is I have my rough mix going through a different output that doesn't touch my master. It is just a totally separate, output. And that way it can go through that or what have you. Hold on one second, guys. I need to text them and tell them to put the dog up. This is live. All right. So the rough mix sounds like this.
A miracle is an extraordinary phenomenon that affirms
And I'm gonna jump around.
There's no telling where I could have been. What joy. Yes, Lord. That sweet joy.
So that's the mix that they've been sitting with. You know what I mean? That's the mix they've been sitting with up to this point. So they've been hearing the vocals sit in a certain way, a certain type of verb on it. You know what I mean? Certain type of depth. You know what I mean? Even down to some of the certain types of sonics. So you have to respect the rough mix. And it's nothing wrong with it. So always ask for a rough mix because it gives you the picture of what the artist is looking for. All right. So I have my rough mix routed out. It doesn't touch my master bus, and I can always bounce back and forth. And it also, one more thing about the rough mix, what it does is it helps you paint a picture and see where you can always bounce back to. Because when you get down in the mix and you start getting discouraged about what you're hearing, about how it's sounding, you can always go back to the rough mix and get some encouragement because it's like, okay, I've moved farther than what I am. It doesn't sound as bad as I think it sounds because we get in our head about things as engineers about the sonics and stuff. And we like, okay, I don't know if this is working. Go back and listen to that rough mix. You'll be quite surprised how far you've gotten down the journey or what have you. All right. So let's keep it moving. Got to talk about my drums. We'll come back to the master bus. That's always the last piece of it. But we got to talk about the drums. Got to talk about them. Got to talk about them because you know what I'm using, boys and girls, and that is none other than Yosh Drum Warehouse. You got to check it out. That is there. Make sure you hit that QR code if you're interested in getting that. I'll leave it up on the screen for a couple of more seconds. 3, 2, 1. It is gone. I'll pull it back up in another point when I actually need it. But make sure you check that out. That's how you'll be able to get these drums that sound the way that they sound. So these drums were recorded really, really clean. I actually didn't trigger the rim shot because the rim shot actually sounded really, really good. Sounded really, really good. So I didn't mess with it. I just brought it up in the mix. I clip gained it up because I wanted it to cut through because I felt like it was working.
My life was really supposed to end, but God.
So it just works, you know what I'm saying? So I left it in there. Now, as far as my kick, I did do a couple of triggers on the kick. So I have a very fat kick. Let's just solo these. So this is the original kick right here, which is nice and punchy, right? It's already punchy. So I added this layer on top of it, which is, it's just there for a little bit of weight, a very fat kick, and maple gum. Just those put together. That's it. With it, without it. It's just layering. Again, we're not trying to, totally replace it. But I did feel like it needed a little bit of weight. So I added in this sample, which is the ambient kick. We added that in to give it some ambience. You know what I mean? And so it added to a nice little weighty kick.
Yes, Lord.
So you end up with that. So let's keep it moving. Getting into my snares, let's get down here. Nice, big, fat, round snare, of course. And I'm gonna break down my snares that I'm using. So this is the original. That's the original. Really nice snare. Snare bottom. Now, all I did with the snare is, looks like I just dipped out where I found the ring. That's really all I did. So if I take this off, you can hear the ring a little bit. So you hear that? So I just dipped out the ring. That's all I did with that. Didn't do anything to the snare bottom at all, actually. And then we added in the Brett snare. I've already printed it so I can keep my, my CPU down. We used the Brett snare just to add some pop to it. Then we put in the popcorn snare. That's all. These are all in Yosh Drum Warehouse. And let me put that up there. That's Yosh Drum Warehouse. So these are all in Yosh Drum Warehouse. Let me go here so you guys can have a little bit more room too. So let's go back over here to the drive. Popcorn snare. Then I added in Nashville snare to give it a little bit more weight. So let me show you what those sound like individually. So these are just the triggers. That's all the triggers right there. You got the absolute, the room snare, Nashville, popcorn snare, and the Brett. We blend it with his, right? So when you hear it in the full drum mix, with the full mix, it sounds real big and fat like that when I'm actually, when you hear it soloed. But when you hear it in the context of the mix, it fits in there. So check it in the context. Mixing is a very, very hard art to master. I know because I've been trying to master this art for several years. That is one of the reasons why I do Mix Mondays. It's a learning environment, and every mix that I do, I learn something new. And I've taken everything that I've learned over the years and we have poured it into our mixing templates. Mixing templates are a great starting place, and we have created several templates that allow you to get up and going quickly, and we have created them for Logic Pro X, we have created them for Pro Tools, for Studio One, for Ableton Live, and so many others. So if you're interested in taking your mixing to the next level, or even just getting started, make sure you check out these links down below in the description of this video and grab your template today. All right, back to the show. So you can hear the difference. It doesn't sound that fat and big when everything is going on. You know what I'm saying? It really is getting, a lot of that weight is getting sucked up with the when the full mix is. So it takes that. So if I take the triggers off, here's the thing. I always love to do this. I love messing with these drummers who love to talk about the fact that we use triggers and stuff on these records. So let's turn the triggers off, right? And let's just let you hear the record with just the absolute, just the regular snare, right? First of all, that joint sound like a rim shot in the stem of the place of that mix. But most people are like, oh, turn the snare up. Just turn it up. Okay, let's do that. Let's just do that. Let's just turn the snare up because, right, it's just, the snare's not loud enough, right? Obviously, let's just turn it up. Let me show y'all what that sounds like. Which is not bad, but when you start bringing in the rest of it, you're bringing up, you got to remember, like in the louder or the shorter, or not the shorter, but the smaller parts of the mix, you're getting bleed, because listen how much bleed is in this snare. That's just a snare solo by itself, right? I got the whole drum kit in the snare mic. Now that speaks back to recording, you know what I mean? Because there are ways, and drummers that record and know about recording know what it takes to record in a way to get a tighter sound on the snare and not get the whole kit in the mix. And of course, compression brings all of that stuff up. So the snare is not it doesn't sound bad, but it is. But the fact is, when you're bringing it up and you're adding compression and layers of compression, you're bringing up those artifacts. And the snare lives where, boys and girls? Right up the middle. Lives right up the middle. And so you're bringing all of that information into the middle, which is going to mess with your bass. It's going to mess with your lead vocal. It's going to make you, all of a sudden, you're going to feel like, why are my toms sound like they're in mono? Why do the toms sound like they're in mono? Why don't I hear the stereo spread on my toms? Well, you got the snare in there, and there's so much bleed in there that it's coming straight up the middle that you're losing your stereo image. So it's a science to it, trust me. But I'm not going to stay there too long. We bring in the triggers, and I just like using the triggers too, you know, and the artist and the producer ask for the triggers. So at the end of the day, we put those in there. So we're able to get a cleaner sound, you know what I mean, and a bigger, fatter sound without all of this stuff. So I'm sorry if you drummers are triggered by the fact that we're using triggers. I'm sorry that if we're triggering you for using the triggers. So sorry. So let's keep moving down. I'm gonna get some questions in just a second, or engage with you guys in just a minute. So I didn't really put anything on the triggers, of course. So we let those kind of do what they do. On the all snares bus, though, I did do, so I bust my snares. The snares are bust to a aux channel bus. You know, people aux input, people call them different things in different DAWs. But all I did there was just cut, you know, do a low cut. I love brick wall cuts. That's just me. It kind of just carves out everything out the way. And then I did a bump around 200, which adds some pop. That's where, if you don't know, like if you want to know where the pop of a snare is, a lot of times, let's look at it here. So let's look at that curve. I was trying to get that. It shows you where the pops and where the body of the snare is. That's where the weight is of the snare, is around 200. So, you know, if you really want to get some more weight or make your snare sound a bit fatter, make sure that you know, start right there in that 200 range or what have you. So I kind of did that. That's really all I did. I don't have any compression over there or anything like that. Hi-hat here, just using the SSL channel with the hi-hat preset. If it works, it works. It sounds good. Sounds good to me. We keep on moving. And I said this in the last stream, like there's no reason that you have to have like 500 plugins on a channel for it to sound good. Overheads, I just used the CLA Mix Hub. I kind of like this vibe. You can kind of look at what I did there. Nothing too crazy there. And I did the same thing with overhead right. And then I did the same. I just literally copy paste that down across my cymbals. Nothing crazy. And then when we get to the toms, I already had the toms in there. And we got CLA drums on the toms bus because there's nothing on the individual. So less is more. Sometimes, again, you think you got to put 1,000 plugins on something. You don't. Simple is best. Keep it simple. If it sounds good, it sounds good. If it doesn't, then you got to fix it. You don't have to mix it. You have to fix it. So I just have CLA drums on there. Set the toms. These are the settings. Nothing too crazy, you know, on that. Followed it up with an EQ. Carved out some space for the low end. Ran it through some drum verb. And I don't even have, actually, I'm not even running it through the verb. The verb is turned all the way down, so I'm not even using drum verb on the toms. I'm just solely relying on the verb that comes out of CLA drums. So let's take a look. So nothing too crazy there going on. Cymbals, we got VMR on there, followed up with an Infinity EQ, low cut, dropping down some of the 3K just to kind of wash out some of the, I think that's 3K. Yeah, 3.5K, just to kind of wash out some of the, like the harshness that might come in from that space. Running it through the TG. This is my favorite parallel drum compressor. It just sounds good, and it's really good. It's very transparent compression. And then the drum verb I'm using is space with the short on this one. That's the short verb. It's verb 1. REQ, I think it's just there. It's not doing anything. And then I'm using IR, waves IR for, with, what is this, alive? That's just that with an EQ on the back of it, just to, in case I want to do something. But that's it. Those are the only two verbs I'm using, a short verb and a long verb. And I'm only actually using, looks like, let's see. Yeah, I'm only using the Clark, and that is just a little bit over here. Just on the snares. So I'm not even using anything overly crazy on that. Drum bus is very simple. I got VMR, but it's bypassed, so I'm not even using VMR. The only thing that is on the drum bus is this. I talked about this last stream. How this is my favorite kind of spreader. It just widens out the drums a little bit. So when you hear it without it, and then when you turn it on, see how much wider that sounds if you're listening, kind of brought it in like that. That's cool. But if you want nice, wide, it just spreads it out. That's just what it is. And I'm just using the spread out preset. You know, if it works, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much the drums. Nothing too crazy on that. Just kind of laid it out, and it all fits into the mix when you bring it in like this.
I'm a miracle. Lord, I thank you for making me a miracle.
Now declare this to yourself.
I'm a miracle. Make no mistake about it. I've got proof that I'm standing here today because of.
And it works. It sounds like church to me. I'm going to dig in. So we're past the drums. The rest of this song, it's not really much more instrumentation to this. We got aux, we got keys, we got bass, we got guitar, and then we got the vocals. So I'm going to just walk through these really quickly so you guys can kind of get in. All right. So from the drums, we got the perk here. Perk is kind of driving, especially the front end of this song. And it's just mainly a lot of this, nothing crazy. Just a shaker and the, that. I think he's got some chimes right there. So there's nothing really much going on with the perk. So I kept it really simple. Brick wall limiter, cutting all the way up to 100, just getting that mud out of there. Drop a 2A on there just to catch some.
For making me a miracle.
Just to catch any transients, but I don't think it's doing anything. Let's see. Yeah, it's not even doing anything. So it's just there. It's not doing nothing. It's just there. Then I ran it through the drum verb though, for real. So if I turn this off, I'll mute this. I just ran it through it just to give it a little bit more, just a little bit more tail on the verb. I ran it through the drum verb, just because. Now the bass is really, really dope. So here's the thing. I remember we talk about like different issues that different mix has that you have to kind of deal with. This particular song, this does not have actual bass. It has moog, moog, mog, bass. I've heard it said all three ways. I want to make sure I cover all the bases so you guys don't correct me. But it's got moog on the bass, like a subby. So it's nice and just all sub. You know what I'm saying? Just all sub. That's what that is. And so that presented a major challenge with this particular record because it's all sub. And when you have like live bass, there's more dynamics, there's more top end, there's more information that can cut through the mix on top of things when the bass player is doing runs and doing different things like that, right? But when you're doing, when you got sub bass, you know what I mean? You're losing all of that. So you just got the meat of the bass, the low end. So to do this, I kind of had to, I think I dealt with some frequencies that I felt was like nasty, just kind of cut those out. And then we put the 2-way on it and it's just there. It's not even really compressing. The needle is like basically just being kissed. It's not even really doing anything. But the sauce here on the bass is actually Saturn, right? I like to use this because it adds a little bit of distortion, because that's the key to helping your bass cut through, or just helping, bass cut through dense mixes, is, believe it or not, distortion. Put an amp on it, put a tube on it, put some saturation on it. That will help it cut through otherwise dense mixes and stuff like that. So I threw a little bit of Saturn on it. I'm just using one band. Normally on my normal, because it's in my template, I kind of do a lot more work on the bands, and I do like tape here and amp here and all of that stuff like that. But with this, I'm doing just a little saturation on the bass to give it a little bit of edge and a little bit of distortion. And it sounds like this when you get into it. So if I turn it off, you get this, same space. Again with it. You hear the distortion come in. So it's just a little distortion to distort it a little bit. And if you're probably listening on like some iPhone speakers, when I turned on the distortion, you probably heard the bass actually come through. You may not be able to hear the sub, but if I turned on that distortion and you're listening on some like iPhone speakers, you probably actually finally heard the bass come through a little bit, because it helps it cut through on the top, and definitely helps it when you got it going through the mix here.
Now declare this to yourself.
Make no mistake about it. I've got proof that I'm standing here today.
So you can hear that bass cutting through a whole lot better and a whole lot more as we kind of get through it, get into the song or what have you, because it's just all sub. So there's nothing you can do with that. I would prefer to have a live bass player on there, but I don't know what the artist had, the budget constraints. Sometimes you get sub bass and key bass because there was budget constraints, you know what I'm saying? And the artist or the producer didn't have the budget to pay that person, what have you. And then sometimes, which I think is the case with this record, I don't think this was a budget thing, because the artist and the producer, I don't think this was a budget thing. He had some of the top players in the industry on this, so it wasn't a budget thing. I think it was more of a creative thing of what they decided, you know what I mean? And sometimes you just get that. They just decided that that's what they wanted. So they chose not to add live bass to this particular song. Maybe they did add live bass and they just decided it didn't work and decided to keep sub bass. Either way, as the engineer, you have to figure out how to keep it consistent and make it work in the context of the mix that you have. So Saturn helped me, a little bit of R bass, bumping it around 80, just to give it some more girth on the bottom end, and then close it all out with R compressor just to compress it on the end. And this is probably the compressor.
Because of God's love for me.
Yeah, so the 2A isn't really doing anything, but our comp is really like where my compression is coming in on the bass. All right, keeping it moving to my keys. In this record, we have Rhodes, EP, and this. So here's something really, really cool I want to show you guys that I like to do. Man, you know what's crazy? And you know what really elevates a track? Having the right drums. And speaking of drums, if you haven't checked out Yosh's Drum Warehouse yet, you're seriously missing out. We connected with John Yosh, a 7-time Grammy Award winner, and we packed over 600 plus multi-sample sounds that work with any DAW and are perfectly formatted for Trick or Two. We're talking tons of snares, kicks, toms, and so much more. You name it, it's in this sample pack. So whether you're on Logic, Ableton, Pro Tools, Cubase, Bitwig, whatever you got, it's all here. It's ready to take your production to the next level. Seriously, go grab it right now. gospelproducers.com. All right, back to the show. So on the beginning of this song, there's Rose. There's like this, he has this spoken word thing kind of going on here.
In the world, God doesn't just work miracles merely for the sake of showing off his power.
Right? So there's no bass or anything playing in this part of the song. It's literally just the EP right here. Kind of got those, it's that MKS, EP, kind of those 80s vibes, right? That's literally the only thing on top of a pad that I think is down here. Some guitar swells. Yeah, the only thing that's in here, you got this pad and you got this EP in here. And they're essentially doing the same thing, right? So what happens is EQ, there's no bass, there's no low end. So you lose the bottom on stuff, right? So what I did was I split it up into 2 channels. You have the EP intro right here, as you can see. And then you have the EP that comes in the rest of the mix on the back end right here. I just split them into 2 different channels. And then, let's see what we did here. I think we had some automation going on here. Let me see here. Yeah, I think I definitely. Yep. So what I did was I brought it in and I brought in this to brighten it up some more. And then we brought the low end up on this as well. I think I had this pull tech, this bypass, so it wasn't doing anything. But we used the R27, looks like. It may have been a taste thing for the producer. You may have wanted it brighter or something. Yeah, I need that EP brighter, so I just threw that on there and made it brighter. It made it cut through the mix a little bit more. So I ran the output of this out of the keys bus and through the main bus so that we made sure we got the rest, we got the full EP. That's what I was looking for. Because what happens is you'll hear the difference. When it comes into the verse, you're gonna hear the EP thin out. There it is. So you hear it thin out because it's going through the keys bus, which has a low pass or high pass, however you call it, however you guys decide to call it. I call it a low pass, even though some people call it a high pass, whatever. Tomato, tomato, crucify me if it's not what you call it. I have the low cut on there. Up to 100 through that bus. So I ran this through the main output to make sure we got all of the weight of that EP on the intro. You know what I mean? to cover our low end, so the low end stays consistent throughout there and it doesn't sound real thin. Because again, going back to that rough mix, the artist and producer have been listening to this record this certain way for all of this time. You know what I mean? So they're used to a certain sound, right? And so when you mess with it, they said instantly, hey man, I'm not hearing like the weight of the EP on the intro. There's nothing there. Can you beat that EP up? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to run it through the keys bus with a low pass on it or a high pass or a low cut on it. And they're not hearing the weight. So let me just separate it, run the intro EP through the main bus and give me back the low end that I'm looking for. And they instantly was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. All right. So other than that, I love Greg Wells' piano. I got it, put it on, I use it on all my keys. It's on there. It's also on the regular EP, and it's on the piano. So let's go down here and let's solo the keys. Then we turn it off. It doesn't sound bad without it. I just love the way it feels. I just like it. And then I got the RS 127 on it to just adding some brilliance. That's all we're doing with that. We ain't doing anything crazy. Just add a little top end, a little 3 to 5K on there. That's all that's going on pretty much with the keys. Organ, top and bottom, there's organ in this record. It's not really doing much on the front end of the song. It actually gets lost, you'll find, on the front end, because this pad down here is actually in the same frequency range that the organ is living in. So it really sucks up a lot of that. And Damien really wasn't too keen on the organ being too far in the mix in that part. It does show up later on, like right in here. And all I got is just simple EQ on it. That's my curve. So I don't always brick wall everything. Sometimes there's a slope. That's my organ EQ. Nothing crazy. That's organ top. That's organ bottom. There's no compression or anything on there. I just literally did that EQ move and called it a day. I didn't even use Sheps on this. So that shows how much we put into the organ. Keys bus, which organ pads, not pads, but organ EPs, all of that is running straight into the keys bus. So everything is running into this one bus. All I got is a low pass. And then I got my compression here that's controlling the overall keys bus. Thought I soloed it. Hold on, sorry. So it's all in there. And Damien wanted to highlight more on the piano, wanted it louder in the mix than he wanted the actual, the rest of the record, the rest of the instrumentation. All right, moving down to aux. And we talked about aux last week. There's really not much going on in aux on this particular record. There we go. Let's bring the waves up so we can kind of see what's going on. The pad strings on the beginning. Then he's got this pad that really just kind of static throughout the rest of it. So there's just not much going on. Bells, and that pad is really holding the aux. Little stuff like that. So some sweet stuff going on in there. Not anything crazy. And then strings come in here in the back. Now, if I remember correctly, there's a spot in here where he really wanted to highlight the strings, which is right here. So that was like the strings moment in the record. So if I bring it out. So that's the strings moment in there. And that's pretty much the aux. It's not really much going on outside of just strings here in the back end. And bells, your traditional kind of gospel flavor there, nothing too crazy. Then guitars, we had some clean, and we had, I think Lutz did guitars on this. Let's see. And I'm not doing anything crazy on guitars, just Infinity EQ, there's that. 2A, got that in there, just to catch some stuff. And then RS 127 rack. And it looks like I put it on the individual channels just to get some more brightness, 10K, some more air on it, just to bring it up into space. Let's see what that was doing, because these guitars don't actually come in towards the end here. Yeah, I see what's going on there. It's just little air. So just a little air on there just to kind of keep things interesting. Nothing really going on there. That's pretty much all of the music. Now, before we get into the Vox, let me make sure you guys ain't got any other questions. And then we'll dig into the main event, which is these vocals and stuff. Music verb, I'm just using R verb, and then I'm running that through, I'm running some of the instruments through that. The drum, not the drums is not even going through that, just the keys is going through that, and the guitars, I think that's it. It's not even really aux. Is aux going in there? Aux isn't even going into the music verb. I got the T-Rex imager. I got the Pro Q dip at 300, some change, and a bump at 10K, and then the 2A to close it all out. That's really all that's there on the aux, nothing else. And then I got some EQ moves here on the strings. As was going on, we bumped some 1K to make them more present. Bumped some 1.6K, somewhere around in there. This is on strings as well. Yeah, just strings, moves. Cut out some of the low end on the pad because it was just eating up so much of the bottom end. We just had to chop it out of there. Just get that completely out of the way of that, because we already got sub bass, right? That's the other reason why I like to do brick walls on some of these things, because if you're dealing with like a subby bass like that, you want to make sure that you get all of that stuff out the way, because that thing is going to own the low end, and so you gotta make room for it. All right. Last thing, we're gonna dig into these vocals. Do you prefer to have the guitars? You prefer for guitars to be recorded with or without effects? Either or. It really depends on the record. Some guitarists are married to their tone, so they will send you their effects and everything already baked in, and that's totally fine with me. I want to say that these were all sent dry, these particular ones, because they're in mono. So he may have done some mono processing, but it wasn't in the box or anything like that, because all of these files, except for this one, is stereo. The swells are stereo. So that means he added in his effects on these swells. So check this out. You can help support the channel. You can support what we do at Gospel Producers by simply picking up some of our merch, like our Juice hoodie. The hoodie season is upon us. We got the GP shirts. We got the GP hoodies. One of my favorites is the Humble Hustle shirt. Get you the Humble Hustle shirt or hoodie. You just type in Gospel Producers on Amazon. We're right there. And what I have on right here, it's our not famous but fruitful. I ain't famous, but I am fruitful shirt. The long sleeve again. We're getting to that long sleeve season. So you want to make sure that you grab that. I'll link down in the description if y'all want to support your boy. It's lunch money. So he's got his effects on there, but his clean guitars, I think, are just clean. They're mono. No, there's some effects on there. So he's got some effects on there, but no, that's not coming from the music verb. That's just coming straight from him. So either works. If you're married to your tone is not, I'm gonna add my own effects to it that work for the record. I'm not mad at either or. All right, now fun stuff. Let's dig in to the main thing, the main event, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We've gotten to the main event. Let's start with the background vocals, and then we'll go to the lead vocals. So this was a big kind of choir sound. Wasn't too crazy on stacks. Looks like I only have like basically 4 stacks of sopranos, 4 stacks of altos, 4 stacks of tenors, right? If I bring it, let me bring my mixer over here. I got it on my other screen. This is why I like using 2 screens. If I bring my mixer over into the frame, you'll see BGVs kind of start right in here. And I'm just doing hard pans left and right, 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 hard pans, hard pans. Not doing anything crazy, right? So that's my panning game. BGVs, I'm gonna pick up here. And so here we have it.
I am a miracle. I'm not a low down dirty shame. I am a miracle.
So it sounds really, really good. So all I did was I separated them into groups. So I have a bus for the sopranos, a bus for the altos, a bus for the tenors, right? And I have them all bus into these buses that all dump into the BGV bus, right? And the reason we do this is so not to overload our compressors, so not to overload our EQs, you know what I mean? Overload the plugins at the bus level. So I'm just simply using a 76, nothing crazy.
'Cause I'm saved in His name.
As you can see, it's not even really compressing. It's just there to catch the transient strays. Little bit of a dynamic EQ looks like I'm using. So I am getting a little compression there because this is a dynamic EQ. This is what I love about Pro Q, is that it gives you the option to make something dynamic. So if you have a problem frequency, not only can you dip it out, but you can add in basically multi-band compression at a click just by going here and going make dynamic, you know what I mean? And it'll make it dynamic, and then you can easily, it becomes a multi-band compressor then, and you can actually, you know, get some compression on that one little frequency that you just wanted to really tame that frequency. 3K is a problem frequency in a lot of records and a lot of recordings. So you sometimes, especially when you got stacks of BGVs, depending on especially female voices, that 3K range can get really harsh really quickly. So I just kind of throw it in and entertain that. So I got the same thing on the altos, same thing on the tenors, and it creates that width and that compression and EQ there, right? So on the bus here, we got Infinity EQ. You know, I bounced between both of them. Here's where I kind of did some work, some surgical work on the front end of it all. kind of cut out some spots and really make that feel good. And then we went into the old timer, love this compressor, just to get a little bit of compression.
Oh, what joy.
Just kissing it, just kissing it. Again, I like building compression in layers, right? Get a dB here, get a dB there, get a dB here, and it doesn't sound squashed. You're literally like taming the dynamics, but slowly, you know what I mean? You're taming the sound and making it more consistent and more level without squashing the dynamics of it. So it still sounds big, it still sounds open because I'm doing layers of compression. You're gonna see those layers of compression come out here. So a little bit of kiss of compression from the old timer, right? Then we ran it into my favorite EQ of all time, which is the Waves Pool Tech. I have 2 of the hardware units over here. So I love using the Pool Tech because it's the EQ that I know the best, right? Because I use the hardware as well. So nothing crazy going on though. Really, all I put it on here is just for that magic frequency of 100, just to give the vocals a little bit of weight. So you cut up to 100 on the vocals to cut out some of the mud and the low end and the stuff that comes into the, into the mix, from the everything under 100. It gets it out of the way of the bass line. But not only that, you boost it at 100 because that's where your bottom end is on your vocal, right? So it becomes the magic frequency where you can increase some weight of the vocal and make it sound a little bit bigger because you're bumping up some of the 100 where the bottom, if that makes sense, the bottom of your frequency range for that particular thing starts, where the vocal starts. So I'm bumping just a 2 dB bump at 100 just to give it some weight.
That fills my soul.
All right. Then we go back into Pro Q. It looks like I cut some highs, did some more dips at 3K, made it dynamic, and then I dropped some 2K. So this is probably all of what I'm hearing at the moment. After I add something, after I do something, I'm trying to see what is it doing, and then we move in there. Then into CLA vocals, nothing too crazy here, just set up like that. That's my CLA vocals vibe. And then Pro Multiband, again, we're trying to, so these vocals were probably really, really harsh. So that means if I'm going back, because I mixed this last year. I mixed this like around this time last year. And it just came out a few weeks ago. So if I was doing this much work on the vocals, that means that they were probably really, really harsh when they came in. So I had to do a lot of like taming around that 3K region, looks like, So we did Pro Multiband, de-esser, just to kind of get in there. And then I used Soothe. So I was doing work. I got it on Vocal Harshness Ultra. That's the preset I started with. So that means that these vocals, I'm not going to embarrass anybody. I don't know. I don't even want to know what they sound like without all the plugins on them, right? I don't want to know. I don't want to go back through that. I don't want to, I don't want to do that. That's not the place to do it. So either way, I had to do all of that and then put another level of compression here with the Pook Chow, the 670, to get this sound in here.
Joy.
And so even then, I can still hear the harshness myself. I can hear the harshness in there that I was probably trying to control. So, but it still sounds good. So even outside of that, what I also did was I went in and rolled the vocals using fader on my desk, my fader port, and I actually used a fader and rolled through the entire song and brought vocals up. You can see these are volume. All these little dots represent volume rides throughout the entire song. So I automated the vocal up and down and kind of made it flow throughout the entire song to make it work. All right. And that is pretty much the BGVs. The verb, I'm using the BGV verb. I'm using, let's play. So it looks like I'm just using our verb. I got a reverse short verb on there, and then an echo verb. And then the rest of the verb is probably coming from CLA vocals. And then I got some sins here to Abby and Sunset. It doesn't look like they're. Doesn't look like they're doing anything. So that's that. That's pretty much the BGVs. Main event, we're gonna get out of here. We'll talk about the master bus and then we'll get out of here. Lead vocal. So I had 2 lead vocals here, similar to the last record I broke down on this. I had Tolan, he was a lot going on here. But I wanna say that he had this intro thing that he's doing here. And it looks crazy like that because I made the waves that big. It's not actually that distorted. That's probably how it actually looks. But Tolan had this intro going on.
You now to receive this encouragement as it is expressed in the signature voice. A phenomenon that affirms the presence of God's activity in the world.
And I want to say it may have been recorded on his iPhone. It may have been recorded something like that. It wasn't recorded high quality because I had to do a lot of EQ work on this. Again, you're dipping out, tapping in frequencies, trying to deal with harshness, trying to deal with what sounds, and trying to get it to sound smooth. So I had a lot going on with this. I had the Pro 2, and then looks like I was doing some more cuts. I cut 26 dB or 20 and boosted 12K at 5, just trying to make this thing sound good. In this particular space. It probably wasn't that bad, but we just had to do what we had to do, and then I threw CLA vocals. This is his spoken word at the top of the song. But then he does these little kind of pop-ups in different parts of the song, like you see right here. He just jumps in and just says something.
God doesn't
jump here.
He's the God of another chance.
He just talks in certain spots. He doesn't sing. He's just talking in different spots in the song. So I treated that pretty much the same. Yep, had to do some work on it because these were recorded with different mics. I remember these conversations now. It was a lot kind of going in and out with this record. He was going back and recording stuff and adding stuff and going into different studios, different places. So we was getting mics and all that kind of stuff from different places. So it's trying to make stuff match, make stuff fall into place. So it looks like I added some 100 here at magic frequency there, and then closed it off with a de-esser. So nothing crazy there. Kim is actually very simple. Well, no, it's not very simple. Looks like I was really going to town trying to, get her in there. So that's kind of like what I did to her mic front end to try to get it, crazy. Bump here, bump there, bump everywhere. C2, then EQ, pull tech. You kind of see my settings there, nothing too crazy. And actually it's in bypass right here, it looks like. It's actually bypass. Or no, that's I think I know what happened. I think I actually bypassed it. Let me see. After a point. Did I volume trim? Yep. So it looks like, so if I go down here, let's see what we did with this. Did I bypass it at some point? Looks like I had an automation for it. So maybe I did or maybe I didn't. I don't see it. Guess I didn't. Yeah, I'm trying to see what did I do. Okay, so I didn't do any other extra automation on this, just mainly volume automation, and really didn't touch it much until, because it just sat there. Didn't touch it much until here in the vamp, just trying to make it fit in. It looks crazy like that. That's where it really is. It's not that crazy. So not much going on in terms of automation. I may have did most of the automation probably at the lead bus level. Let's see. Nope, doesn't look like it. It looked like I did it at the track level. Again, I mixed this a year ago, so you have to look at that. So nothing crazy going on there. On the actual bus, lead bus, we got Infinity EQ. We got our compressor. Again, we're doing levels of compression. We're doing the old timer, Pro Multiband, and then Pro DS, Soothe, and I feel like I'm missing something. Yeah, okay. I'm like, I know I'm missing some stuff. CLA vocals is in there. That's the standpoint for that. Nothing too crazy. Pro Q, just cutting out the mud again. Brick wall. Pool Tech to close it off. Levels of compression, just to bring it up a piece. All of that came together to make this.
Of Kim Burrell.
There's no telling where I could have been. And when I think about it, y'all, my life was really supposed to end. But God came and...
So I threw like the little, delay throw there.
Came and
that's the only place that's in. I didn't do any other delay throws. It's just really to fill up space and gaps because it felt dry without anything in that space. So that's pretty much that. Verb. Most of the verb, I believe, is coming from CLA vocals. Yeah, just a little bit of large verb there.
He rescued me from the trouble that I...
Parallel compressing with the CLA 76. And then
I did not need.
I got mono delay here with the lexicon. I got space vocal plate and then space vocal verb. Nothing crazy. Just using a long verb there, medium long verb, and then an echo plate. And then I got IRL here. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much like the whole kind of vibe. So all of that produced this sound.
He's the God of another chance.
He gave me a chance, and life was again. So I'll testify that I am a miracle.
So as you can see, I see this question right here that feels good right here to talk about this. What about the lead vocals getting it to sound big and sit in the mix right? Now, here's a little thing a little trick that I like here. Let me jump here. This is why I love the Pool Tech. I'm gonna take a second and talk about the Pool Tech and why I love it and how you can use it to make your vocals sound big. So what I'm gonna do is let's listen to this vocal in the context of the mix before we solo it. And let's hear it here. Let's go to the beginning of the song where she's actually just singing by herself.
Nor a mistake. No.
Right here.
There's no telling where I could have been. And when I think about it.
So you see how big that feels, right? So if I bypass, turn off the Pool Tech, listen to the difference.
My life was really supposed to end. But God came.
I'm gonna turn it back on.
And he rescued me from the trouble that
Without it,
I did not need.
He's the God of another chance.
He gave me a chance at life.
so you see the difference that 100 makes. I'm telling you, running trying to make 199 and a half won't do. Just that simple move of boosting 100 can change the dynamics on a vocal and make it sound way larger than what it needs. It's just the 100 to me for vocals is like the magic frequency. I don't know. I can't tell you scientifically. Some of the nerds want to get in and figure it out. But I can't tell you like scientifically what makes that work. All I can tell you is that 100 is like the magic frequency. So let's dig in. I'm gonna solo it this time and let's listen in like tandem to what's actually going on and let's hear it.
Once there's no telling where I could have been. And when I think about it,
I'm gonna dip it down.
my life was really supposed to end.
Let's just bump it.
But God came and he rescued me.
See how much bigger it's getting?
From the trouble that I did not.
You don't want to overdo it. It's just finding that sweet spot. For me, 5 dB at 100 on her vocal just worked. It made her sound massive. She's already in the middle, you know what I'm saying? But it made her sound massively bigger than what what it was in normal. Just a sweet little boost right there, 5 dB at 100. Let me show you something else that makes it sound wider. Now we're gonna go up to the lead vocal bus at this point. And CLA, this is where CLA vocals kind of shines in making a vocal sound bigger. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna turn off same section. We're gonna turn off, we're gonna play it with CLA vocals. And I'm gonna turn it off.
There's no telling where I could have been. And when I think about it.
Now let me show you the magic. This is the hack. I'm giving you this. Oh God, I'm giving you the sauce. Here's the hack right here. It's this little area right here where it says pitch. This is the sauce right here. It's this little preset that says wide right here. So if I turn this off, watch what happens. Same section, right?
Have been.
Now I'm gonna turn it on.
And when I think about it, y'all.
Turn it off.
My life was really supposed to end.
So you hear how much bigger it got because it serves the same purpose. All it is chorus. It's widening it. It's giving it some chorus. It's messing with the pitch and it's widening, making the sound wider, right? But what it's doing is it's just spreading it out. It's doing the same thing that the T-Rex spreader does. Remember the imager that I was using, I was showing you guys earlier. It's doing the exact same thing. It's stretching that vocal out and making it feel wider, stretching it out across your speakers, making it sound wider. So if I turn off CLA vocals and I turn off the Pool Tech, the same section, you're gonna hear a massively thinner vocal.
There's no telling where I could have been.
You see what I'm saying? Then if I turn them on.
And when I think about it, y'all.
So it gets a little bit bigger, wider, right?
My life
but it still doesn't have the weight.
It's supposed to end, but God came.
So now she sounds really, really big, really, really massive. Because she's already got a big, sultry, like a borderline, I know this is gospel music, but sexy voice, right? So and I'm not saying Kim Burrell is sexy. Lord have mercy, please don't quote me on that. I'm just saying her voice is that timbre. Oh, God. Get in all kind of trouble tonight. So you do what you can do to make it, to enhance it and make it sound bigger. So now when I take that and put that into the record, you get this.
There's no telling where I could have been. And when I think about it, y'all, my life was really supposed to end. But God came and He rescued me from the trouble that.
So you see what I'm saying? So it really makes it bigger, more in your face, more that you layer those things with compression and EQ and saturation and all of those fun things, and you get a bigger, fatter vocal. All right, master bus really hasn't changed. If you've been following me for a minute, you already know what's on my master bus. I got the SSL.
I did not need.
Just there, just getting kissed. VMR.
He's the God of another chance.
He gave me
or tape machine, not VMR. VMR here with just some air, Pull Tech, got that going on. Slate Digital, FGX. I still need to get the newer version of this. Got a trimmer right before the limiter, and then the limiter is the PSP Vintage Warmer. And then I think I left out a VMR, and it's just virtual. It's a trimmer that's doing nothing. It's just there in case I need it. And then tonal balance control. This is a gem. I love tonal balance control because it really lets you know where your record's kind of sitting.
and life once again, so I'll testify that I am a miracle.
So you're just trying to stay within these ranges, and it just kind of lets you know where you're living. I love this because not only can you do that, you can also get fine-tuned, and it'll actually show you, because there's no audio going through it. That's why the line is falling. But when audio is flowing,
No, that's not me, but I am me.
you know, so it just kind of shows you where you are with different. And that's just, you got different presets. You got bass heavy, hip hop, jazz, modern. You got different curves that you can kind of play around with. I just always leave it on bass heavy by default. Then you go broad, or you go fine to kind of see where your problem frequencies are. Or if you're, mainly for me, it's a low end tool. It's a low end reference. I want to look at it and see, because I do have a sub here in my room. My room isn't the perfect room. It's not treated perfectly. So I do want to make sure that I am not over emphasizing, or I'm not losing too much low end, because my sub, if I'm monitoring too loud, if I'm listening too loud at a point, I might actually think that I got more low end than I actually have. And that's happened to me dozens of times, like, depending on how my monitoring is for that particular record, or the information. Low end will deceive you. You know what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that you have something there that can let you know where you're kind of living with that. All right. So that's pretty much the record. Nothing else, nothing much more to it.